So look, welcome back, greetings. Just the final slot on this first day. I was talking about Taoism. So Buddhism in China went into these two kind of schools, both of which had valid points and a wonderful history. But the Chinese soul was Taoist before that. And they accepted Buddhism because they saw it as a kind of variant on Taoism. In the teachings of Lao Tzu, the Tao Te Ching, the ultimate enlightenment experience is a flowingness. So human beings are not static, stuck, fixed nouns. We're verbs in action. And we're made mostly of water. We flow, literally. And so in Taoism, the Tao is likened to water. And so one reason it's likened to water is because it always takes the humblest place. Water flows downhill and nourishes everyone in the river, and then it flows all the way to the sea. So there are some people that speculate that the Tao Te Ching might have been written by a woman, because it's very female-friendly, Taoism. And enlightenment is therefore the natural condition of the human in service to each other in love. And Taoism also has some very, very interesting teachings in their innermost secret religious practices, like yoga, to do with alchemy, through breath work, and visualization work. So Taoists believe they can reach immortality. And there's a whole tradition of what are called the immortals. These are human beings who transform themselves through inner yoga, secret practices of Taoist variety. Basically what it means is they've reached their immortal soul. They've left their body, they've discovered they're a soul just in a body for a while, and they've gone to their home world, which the Taoists believe is a magical mountain in the far, far west of China, which can only be seen with an etheric body. You can't physically go there. If you go there, you won't find it. But it's where all the sages assemble. And that's where you go if you're a Taoist sage and you're approaching immortal body yoga. You can go there. And they believe that there are sacred codices there, which are not written in book, they're not published. They're in the etheric world, in sacred texts. And throughout Taoist history, some sages have downloaded the contents of these. They've peeked into the heavenly library, and they've managed to bring back sacred teachings, which are about how to do all this journeying. And those exist. There are various Taoist esoteric wisdom schools that are still alive today, initiates who've handed this stuff down, and they have the teachings, which were recorded by someone in the 600s or 700s AD or whatever, and they have their lineage. Absolutely fascinating to study this stuff, because it's very similar to even the Sufi idea, which is that Muhammad got his download of the Quran from the mother of the books, the al-Kitab, the mother of the books. So the Taoist sages are going to the mothership of enlightenment, if you want, which is an out-of-body meet-up place on this plane. But you can only go there transdimensionally. And then that seems to be what Muhammad was doing. Now this is fascinating stuff, really, from a comparative spirituality and enlightenment point of view. Because what it means is these great sages throughout history have been having similar kinds of experiences. I've studied these things. Another vehicle they use in Taoism, they use prayer, they use spells, which is chanted mantras, just like in Nepal and India. And they use tantric body in co-enlightenments. If a man and a woman want to reach these states, they can practice certain advanced tantric forms of initiatory lovemaking involving breathing practices and so on, and visualization. And they can leave their bodies together. So they go they go to the holy magical mountain mothership together. That is advanced stuff, and these Taoists are up to that, and they're amazing. Now, it's very life-affirming. What I like about Taoism, it's not saying we want to leave our body because we hate the world, it's horrible, let's get out of here, it's all on fire. They're saying, no, we can leave our bodies when we want, if we do the practices and learn how. But then we come back and we affirm life, and we do our Tai Chi, and we go to the mountain and we write a poem, or we do music or art, and we raise a family. So the idea of the Taoist sage who's reached enlightenment isn't you stay up on the top of the mountain in your magical place. You come back into the village, and you're just the guy in the pub or the tea house reading some verse. So there's this integration of the transcendental states, which are as high in Taoism as any other tradition on the planet that I know of, and then integrated into ordinary everyday life, which isn't ordinary at all, it's extraordinary. So that's what I think why Taoism is so important. And periodically, mostly they live with the Taoist sage idea is you don't even bother with the cities. You don't go and clean up Beijing or the corrupt Londinium or whatever. You know, you live in the forest, in the mountain, in nirvana, and you maintain that peak potential of consciousness, and they can come and visit you if they want. You know, so from time to time in history, emperors have been to see the Taoist sages. I think what happened recently was a tragedy when Mao Zedong and the communist tradition of China, mechanized knowledge, and they denied all transcendental knowledge. In the materialist tradition of Marxism, they denied the possibility of transcendence and the possibility of enlightenment. Enlightenment for the Marxist mind has been totally materialized. Apart from, yes, they believe in education. Marx was a very erudite man. He spoke many languages, was fluent in many literatures, but he had a closed mind when it came to spirituality. And because of that, his system had no ethics in it. And it meant that people who are operating within that Marxist orbit can do mass killings and purges. And Mao and his cadres killed millions and millions of ordinary Chinese people in the name of the party, and worked with bandits and criminals to do that, and suppressed, the ontological rights we all have as humans to enlightenment. And I don't think that, so I think this is a problem. Also, it was done by Pol Pot, whose biography I'm reading at the moment, the Cambodian communist leader, who killed 2 million people in the name of progress and communism, from the same ruthless ideology that Mao was coming from, and Stalin before him. So we have a problem. So what's happened is the Taoists have all gone to Taiwan, which is the Free People's Republic, where they're still worshipping in their temples, and they're still enlightened sages there. Are there any left in mainland China? Yes, of course there are, but they're in hiding, they're in the woods, they're not public figures. And I would love for that. I mean, Alice Bailey talks about the reappearance of the hierarchy, the externalization of the hierarchy. What she meant by that is there are sages everywhere who are enlightened, but they have to keep a low profile because they'll be arrested and killed. Like one of the greatest Buddhist sages of Russia, who founded the Russian Buddhist monastery in Petersburg before the revolution. He was a friend of some Russian aristocrats that were really into Buddhism and were studying Shambhala, and he was then friends with some Bolsheviks in Russia who wanted to make Russian Bolshevism Buddhist. I put an ethics into it and accept reincarnation, accept the soul, and accept enlightenment. And so they didn't agree with Stalin massacring everybody in the name of the party. And they were all killed off. There's a very important book called Red Shambhala about, a historian has just written about all this. Ruthlessly, So Enlightenments is is very important to get right. That's the Taoist tradition. What Confucius tried to do was to build a structure of life stages that, to live in the real world. So Confucius was an enlightened sage, I believe. He, by tradition, met Lao Tzu. He was an amazing teacher. If you read Confucius's Analects and his Doctrine of the Mean and The Great Learning, these texts they were the basis of all Chinese higher education until 1911. If you wanted to serve in the government bureaucracy, you had to learn the Confucian texts. And they're masterpieces, they're amazing. They're about precisely the question you're asking: how can we bring enlightenment to normal people? What difference would it make to the economy, or to the military, or to the foreign policy, or whatever? Confucius thought about this stuff and worked it out. His view on the supernatural was that yes, it exists, there are gods, there are spirits, yes, but don't worry too much about them. They're fine, they'll sort themselves out. Worry about your family, your home, your city, your civilization. Turn that towards righteousness and towards goodness. So he was a kind of teacher of ethics. And he is revered still today in China. His museum and where he lived, his descendants are still around. So I also wanted very briefly to mention Shintoism, which is the Japanese equivalent. And Shintoism means the way of the gods, Tao, Wei, Shen, gods. And the Shinto is like Taoism in Japan. They are nature lovers, they worship the spirit beings. And to be a learned Japanese sage, you have to know all about Shintoism, read the original texts. You have to know all about Buddhism and understand all that. And there's so many amazing complex Buddhist schools in Japan, like the Pure Land School, which is a new take on the Enlightenment argument. It says, this world is now too fallen and evil for anyone to reach enlightenment from here. The portals have been shut because people are so ridiculously evil and silly. All you can hope to do is to go to the Pure Land after death, and from there you can reach full enlightenment. There's millions and millions of Japanese Buddhists who believe that. I don't know if they're right or wrong. I hope they're not right. I hope. But it sounds a bit... Anyway, it's interesting. And that was a Chinese thing as well. So the Japanese Shinto, you have to learn all about Buddhism on all the schools. Tentai Buddhism as well, which works with mantras and prayers and magic. But then you have to also learn about modern science, because Japanese intellectuals have absorbed Western thought. They've all read everything I've been talking about. And only if you have mastered all that can you be considered erudite in Japan. And I've met Japanese intellectuals who've told me that. And they regard this as normal. I met one of the most important 20th century Japanese philosophers at a peace conference in the south of India once, who wrote a brilliant paper. It was at a Congress of Philosophers. I've still got it. He said, the starting point of all intellectual discourse about philosophy should be enlightenment. We should start from enlightenment and then work down, and everything will be sorted. He's one of a particular branch of modern Japanese thought that integrated Shinto, Buddhist, Western philosophies of enlightenment and came up with I think it's called Nishido Kitaro. He's dead now, but a great man, honour his memory. So I love what the Japanese are doing in comparative global searchings, and they are doing deep stuff about enlightenment and how we can integrate everything into a universal vision. So that's the Shintoists, and I'm going to stop there because it's a little glimpse of what we'll be doing tomorrow. I'm going to talk some more about that when it's my turn. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And any final questions or...
That's really good. That's great.
It's awesome stuff.
It's a lot. And,
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been to
Normally
Japan?
my brain would be fried by now, but I'm happy to keep going.
Well, we've got Satyen Raja and the Wisdom Keepers.
Oh, okay.
Wonderful.
So starting in 5 minutes.
And
so.
there might be a rainbow because it's still
Can you hear
blue
the sound
sky.
of the
I know, I heard
raindrops?
it coming.
Yeah.
I can hear the
Wow.
raindrops on the leaves.
Well, that's
so
a good sign.
beautiful, yeah.
So the Shintoists and Taoists will say it's a sign from the
Yeah.
kami. That's their word for the
What
gods.
is the translation of the word Qing in Tao Te Ching? Tao Te Ching. What is the
Yes.
translation of Qing? Is it power? What?
I believe, now let me get this right. Tao is the way.
I know that much.
Um,
That's why I asked you about Qing.
I think isn't it the book,
Oh, is it?
I think.
I thought Qing might have had something more to do with the way of power.
Well, we got the
For
I
example.
Ching, the I Ching, the Book of Changes. I think it's the book,
You
because
think it
Tao
means
Te
just
Ching.
the book?
I'll get back to you on that.
All right.
That's my working hypothesis,
Mm.
because I've asked that question before. Okay, shall we switch
Yes,
off?
of
We'll
course.
stop for tonight.
Oh,
Thank
And
you.
we'll finish
still on.
with...
Oh, yes.
No, shut
You want
down.
to, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Of course.
We'll just finish with